Hello, everybody, and welcome to First Ring Daily. I'm Brad. Well, Paul's right there, but I'm right here. And today's show is brought to you by Cloudberry Lab. Check them out, cloudberrylab.com/FRD. And go grab yourself a free trial offer and learn how to back it up just a little bit better.
How you doing?
Yeah, you know, it's Monday.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Oh, we're kicking it off with this guy back here. So if you've been under a rock or not on the internet, which actually is probably a good thing for your health, there was a whole bunch of phones announced this week, or weekend, I should say, over in Spain at Mobile World Congress. And the one that always takes the show is always the Samsung Galaxy S9 because it's the only one that really sells in any significant amount of volume. Yep. Although the LG V30 or whatever the hell they're calling it now does do typically pretty well, but I think it pales in comparison to this guy back here, which is the Samsung Galaxy S9. What say you, Surratt?
So I'm gonna buy one. I have no faith in our in this company showing up with a review unit, so I'm just gonna buy one. We'll see how that goes. But I pre-ordered a black one. You can get it in any storage allotment you want as long as it's 64 gigabytes. And there's a lot to like about this thing. I swear, if they would just, and I realize this is a huge stretch, but if these guys would just support Project Fi, I don't think I would ever look back. But yeah, the big news this year is the camera, which looks incredible. Now we'll have to see, but dual lenses, of course, on the S9 Plus. But more important, see how they're So the S9 just has a single camera, but dual lens camera. But it has automatic aperture. I can't remember the term, but it actually changes the aperture to let in more light in low light conditions. It does it automatically. So it's the first smartphone camera with a variable aperture lens. It has two of them. Actually, it has one of them. I'm sorry, only one of them is variable. But this is actually kind of incredible. So if you look at the various innovations that have occurred in smartphone cameras over the past few years, I mean, 2x optical zoom on the iPhone 7 Plus is one of them. Dual camera systems, which give you that capability to do different effects like bokeh and portrait mode, is another one of them. And this kind of capability, in which there literally is a tiny motor moving the thing inside, is something that's only been in actual cameras before, right? And so as miniaturization improves, they're able to start adding these legit camera features to phones now. It's pretty exciting. Yeah,
no, I'm actually. All things considered, it's a good upgrade. I wouldn't say it's they're changing the game by any means, but it's a pretty decent upgrade. My biggest complaint though is actually with this stock photo that they're showing here. Fortunately, they did put the fingerprint sensor down below. They learned from that terrible mistake on the S8. Although it's a little misleading in this picture because where this guy's finger is, it's not actually on the sensor. You would actually have to move that up, which gets it a little close to that bottom one. I would love to have seen it maybe down a little lower, but
Brad, that's... You're being very picky. I think it would work fine. If you think about how a fingerprint sensor works, it has you do all those edge detection things. It probably works fine from the corner or
possibly. The other big thing too is actually, and this shouldn't even be a big thing at all, is that they're leaving the traditional headphone jack in the phone as well. So if you're holding on to that and that's up your alley, which a lot of people are, myself included, I would love for Apple to not be so ignorant. You can still get that.
It makes Apple is they do a lot of really good things. There's no doubt about it. But one of the things you really have to deal with on the Apple side is just their belligerence towards stuff like this. They have a really hard time stepping back from the cliff, and things like that notch in the iPhone 10 or the headphone jack, like you're saying. It almost seems like the more complaining there is, the more adamant they become that no, we make the right decisions, and you are not going to second guess us. And it is slightly infuriating because there's plenty of room for a headphone jack in that phone.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really about it. Realistically, if they would ever, and maybe they're doing this because about what I'm about to say, is if this thing supported iMessage, I probably would buy one.
I mean, you mentioned, you said something to the tune of, this phone is obviously evolutionary. It looks just like its predecessor or whatever. And true. I mean, absolutely fair. But, the thing that's interesting about the S8 and now the S9 and the Note 8 too, of course, is that the design of these phones has still yet to be surpassed by any other phone maker, including Apple, right? And so 18.5 by 9 displays, those tall, thin displays are becoming very common. Everyone has one now. Google has one with the Pixel 2 XL. Apple has one with the iPhone 10, et cetera, et cetera. OnePlus 5T is that version for those guys. But the thing that everyone lacks, that Samsung still has a huge advantage with, is those curved displays that go over the two sides of the phone. It's beautiful to look at. They've tried some interesting things to make it functional too, where they have side swipes that bring up certain UIs, and you can configure what that does. Samsung, has some downsides. I think they over-engineer things a little bit in some cases, and some of their software in particular is a little bit onerous, and then Bixby and so forth. But from a design perspective, Samsung in many ways surpasses Apple. It's kind of incredible to say. I mean, and again, with this display technology in particular, I just feel like they're at the apex. And so, Apple is on the fourth rendition of that design that kind of debuted with the iPhone 6, right? Yeah. And, you don't mess with what works, I think is the deal there. So how do you improve this thing, which is already gorgeous? But looking at the camera, which, by the way, was already excellent, but now you have to deal with these dual camera systems and so forth. I mean, how do you do that? And they're doing it in pretty spectacular fashion. I mean, I'll have to test it, but it looks amazing.
I can tell you one way, Paul, they could improve this phone very easily. If you do buy this phone against your will and very much an Apple-like fashion, Bixby is coming along for the ride with a hardware button. That is where I need a sad trombone noise, because that's the...
It's a huge problem.
Yes.
It's a huge problem. I have to say, I wouldn't mind that they were doing Bixby if you could replace it with the Assistant, which is what I want. And obviously you can install that app on your phone. It's amazing to me that they go to lengths to prevent people from fixing that. We have no need of another personal assistant thing. This is Google making a platform play. They obviously have a long-term goal to remove Google from the equation entirely. And Bixby is pointless. But there are other areas where they're kind of filling in gaps, like that DeX technology is really interesting, like that kind of continuum style functionality. We can attach it to a dock and have a big screen and a PC keyboard and mouse. That should come from Google, right? But Google's not doing that. Google, I think, is too busy going in the other direction by adding Android apps to the Chrome OS, which, is fine. But I look at it, I've always looked at Android, before Chrome OS. Well, as Chrome OS first started coming out, I thought, like, why do you even need this thing? You have Android. Like Android could do this. Android is an environment in which the Chrome browser runs. I mean, why not just base it all in Android? I can't answer that question, but Google, or rather Samsung, is pushing the phone in that direction now, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Google's been spending too much time launching different chat applications. That's rather than focusing on. I think the Samsung DeX idea, obviously we know there's some merit to it, and they're pushing forward with it, and I think it's a brilliant move to help also differentiate their device. Why would you buy Samsung? Well, you can do that in a pinch, and so it's an interesting.
Definitely some pros and cons, but there are pros and cons when you go the Apple route. I don't know. It's interesting. Samsung is a strange company. Part of it is cultural, obviously. Part of it is because they have this, desire to break free from the Google thing, and I get that, but you have a lot to deal with if you go that route, of course.
Absolutely. Other companies that have announced phones, and I've got really mixed opinions about this. So this is the former shell of Nokia is now announcing more Nokia branded devices that aren't Nokia, but they steal from the Nokia heritage. And to be honest, not too many people were talking about them other than this legacy looking banana phone, which for those that are stuck in 1999 and would like to relive that experience, you now have a phone to do so, Paul.
It's like a slider phone, isn't it? Is that what you call it?
Exactly,
or is it a flip or a flip phone? Is it a flip or a slider? I don't even know.
No, this slides down like the Matrix, like phone, but it's not spring loaded like the Matrix. I actually think that
not as advanced as the phone in the Matrix.
I actually think that this was a brilliant marketing move. Only for the reason that it got a lot of press, and that's
Yes.
about it. Because I don't think that phone's going to sell in any serious volume other than a novelty or maybe in some parts of the world where they like those types of phones. But every time somebody wrote about this, they ended up writing about all these other phones,
That's right.
which worked out really well for the Nokia company that it is, and it's kind of them getting free exposure to saying, "Hey, look, we're not actually dead. The brand is still here." But
no, it's you're right. It's smart marketing. They did the same thing last year with that little candy bar phone, the 3310 or whatever it was called. Smart. I think I defined hipster one time as someone who is nostalgic for an age in which they did not live.
Geez.
There is a weird market these days for out-of-date technology, right? It's kind of a natural reaction to the digital revolution, and so record players are kind of a big thing for a little while now, and retro gaming consoles you can buy and all that kind of stuff, and so I sort of see these phones in that light, and yeah, there's a little limited market for that kind of thing, but sorry guys, I mean the rest of the world is moving forward, and I would have to say among the major activities one might do on a phone in 2018, making a phone call is low on the list.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought too. It's the number one thing I don't want to do on a phone is actually talk on a phone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's ironic, I guess, in a way, but that's how things evolve, and whatever. I have no problem that they made this. I'm not interested in it personally. Right. I think it's smart. Like you said, I think it's good marketing. It's every year as Mobile World Congress occurs, we're going to be wondering, what is HMD/Nokia going to re-release this year? Like, we can look back at the, Nokia portfolio and try to figure out like what maybe they do in 2019.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are not happening in 2019, but I believe are actually going to happen in 2018 here, I got a couple tips this weekend, and then actually somebody sent me some screenshots from the latest developer preview of Microsoft Teams. It looks like they are going to be offering a freemium version of the platform, which I can only conclude means they're getting ready to take on Slack, because Slack has a free tier, and it looks like Microsoft Teams is going to be having a free tier. There's a whole bunch of references to freemium. There's things that are saying, hey, for non-MSA accounts, which initially I thought this was tied to that kind of guest access, but it's pretty clear in some of the languages as non-MSA freemium accounts. And then it also says contact your administrator to upgrade your account, and all sorts of other things tying back to a free tier of Teams, which I suspect is probably going to launch pretty soon if they've already got it into the developer preview.
Huh. So to clarify this, Teams is currently only available as part of the commercial versions of Office 365.
Correct.
So having a freemium, and you said specifically non-MSA.
Well, I think it would support non-MSA, or they might have been trying to differentiate potentially internally between the MSA guest access and the freemium account access.
It's kind of a weird thing. Microsoft account is free, right? Anyone can get a Microsoft account. It's just like a Gmail account or whatever. You could have a custom domain name of any kind, and you could turn that into an MSA if you want to. It's a low friction way to get into the Microsoft ecosystem, but I think them offering this in a way that does not require an MSA speaks to the fact that that's still a big barrier for a lot of people. People want to type in their email address and go. That's what they used to with web services, and they don't want that association with Microsoft. It's very interesting. I mean, this is can you think of another example of a Microsoft service that offers that kind of access? I don't think it exists.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, I'm not 100% sure that you'd be able to log in with a Gmail account. What we're looking at, the evidence that was sent to me, which is very clear because it references some people's names, and I actually looked them up, and they work on Teams, according to LinkedIn. It just says non-MSA accounts. So I don't know if that truly means you can log in with a Gmail, or if that's some sort of internal referencing. I've emailed Microsoft for a clarification on this, and I gave them until noon Eastern time. Otherwise, I'm just going to hit publish, because if it's in a developer preview, people are probably pretty privy to this, and it's going to get out there.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious about that, because just releasing Teams outside of Office 365 commercials shows a certain amount of, seriousness about this product. If they could do it in a way, my cat's back, sorry. I just like the most distracting thing in the world. If they could do it in such a way that you don't even need an MSA,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just guest access, right? Like in other words, like someone could invite you in. I get that, but I mean, if you could just download Teams,
Yep.
sign in with whatever, and use it and be searchable or findable or whatever, that's in many ways, that would be incredible. Think about it. I mean, that in many ways might be the killer feature here, if that's what it is.
Yeah, we will see. But I mean, it makes sense that they're going to put some sort of probably limitations on this, right? They're going to let you in. Maybe they'll limit it to 20 people, or you can only upload a file that's as large as 5 megabytes, or you can only have so many channels. But essentially, they need a competitor because if you think about it, if you're a brand new company and you want to get up and running, you can go download Slack for free and get started and just kind of run and play with it. And then as you mature.
That's right.
So. Yep, we'll see here.
Think about a company like us. We're based on the G Suite stuff. There's not, that's just the way it is. It was there when we arrived. It wasn't like we all decided together we're going to go Google, but we're on Google.
Yep,
and it's fine. And but we internally have talked about using Microsoft Teams, and I know people have tested it, and it would require moving everything over to Microsoft, which some of us have argued we should do, but it's a big undertaking. Being able to just kind of take a step into that pool with Teams would be huge for companies like us, and it would be huge for Microsoft because there are lots of companies like us which are small companies that may hope to one day be bigger companies and might want a more professional infrastructure, and this is maybe the low-hanging fruit now for that kind of thing. It's smart.
Yep, we shall see. So look for that post. It'll be over on the Petri side here at noon Eastern time, which will probably be around the same time this podcast go live. So just go check that out. And Paul, and then you've got a book update.
Yeah. So a week ago today, I was probably moaning about the fact that I had on that Sunday decided to update an innocuous chapter of the Windows 10 Field Guide, and then spent the entire day. I later spent all afternoon on Monday and Tuesday, and then Friday, and then all day Saturday, and all day Sunday, by the way, updating the book. And I actually finally published this damn thing yesterday. In doing so, I discovered a lot about how the recovery technology in Windows 10 changed in the Fall Creators Update. It seems subtle, but it's actually really significant. And it goes back to that PC reset, PC refresh stuff that we were talking about previously. But anyway, if you are a reader of the book, you should download the new version. It's fairly significant. I separated the content that is what I would call file backup, like file history, from what I'm now calling system recovery, which is, reset this PC, refresh Windows, and fresh start, as well as the system image backup stuff that's in Windows backup. But it was pretty. I mean, I resolved on Saturday I was just going to get through this. And I almost finished it. And when I got up on Sunday morning, I had a to-do list, like just go through, check all the images, make sure the capitalization and everything is correct. And then like in the middle of it, and this is like 9 o'clock in the morning, I realized I needed to split the chapter in two, which is a fairly major change. And I just thought to myself, I am never going to ship this thing. Like, I'm never going to ship it. I'm going to just work on this for the rest of my life. And then I'm going to die and it's going to be unpublished. But I did publish it. So now I can die.
Well, that's just lovely. Because Brad has a meeting here in 10 minutes. You got anything else for today, Paul?
No, I actually am going to ship another chapter in the book today, though, because I was so excited to get something done. I updated another chapter, so I'm just going to go through it one more time, make sure all the shots are correct. But that will be sometime this afternoon. I'm going to do some work before then. So, yeah, I mean, I've written a lot about the Samsung stuff. Mehdi has as well. I'll try to stop writing about the Samsung stuff. But I am pretty excited about it. And I'll try to look at some of the other things that are going on today. So I'll probably have some more stuff. And in a feat of miraculousness, the Miracast worked all episode. That's fantastic. Congratulations, Miracast. It's the technology of the future. Yeah. But folks, that wraps it up for today. Today's show is brought to you by Cloudberry Lab. Check them out at cloudberrylab.com/FRD for a free trial offer and learn how to back up your data to Amazon S3, Google Cloud, Azure, and just about anybody else. And we'll be right back here tomorrow on First Ring Daily, and have yourselves a wonderful day.